Hi everyone, this is Steve Krause and welcome to Writing 444 Online. This is Writing for the World Wide Web for fall 2016 and also 544 if you're a graduate student. This is just a little welcoming video and trying a way to orientate you towards the class website and what we're going to be doing. And what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to go ahead and walk through the site, and you should watch this video and walk through the site yourself, and I'll hit a couple of highlights. And then after you watch this video, make sure that underneath here that you be sure to introduce yourself in the comments after you have logged in and signed up registered for the class, and we'll talk about that in a second too. You might have started the class with a view like this with this is on Canvas, but as you'll quickly learn, pretty much the whole class is going to take place on this site here. This is 444.stephendkrause.com. If you look at the syllabus, this takes you through some of the basic information, office hours, when I'm around, things like that. These are the two books that you need to get. The Steve Krug book, Understanding Rocket Surgery Made Easy, and the Jenny Reddish book, Letting Go of the Words. Be sure to get the second edition of this book because I do think that it does make a difference as far as this goes. This part here I talk about a preamble of hardware and software. The thing about that, read this over, but basically the thing to remember about Writing for the World Wide Web is that on the one hand, it's a writing class, which means that that's the emphasis from my point of view is on writing. On the other hand, I guess there's two other hands, it is a class that's called Writing for the Web, which does suggest a certain level of computer expertise and coding and things like that. And the second thing is that I think that one of the things, if you haven't figured this out already from other classes that you may have taken in our program, writing doesn't just mean words in a row. Writing means a lot of other things, and that will become very apparent as we go along. Stuff you need to do in terms of online attendance. On the one hand, this is a class that does actually work fairly well online because you can work independently on some parts of the class and work ahead of the schedule. I'm thinking particularly the Codecademy stuff. On the other hand, it's not a self-paced, self-study class. Learning happens together. We're all working together. So this means two things. One is that you need to stick to the schedule as I've got it set up, and I'll show you that in a second. But the other thing is that you need to be here and be a part of the discussion. And as I explain in this part of the website, if you're absent from the class for any period between Monday and Wednesday and Friday, I'll count you as virtually absent. And if you're virtually absent too many times, you're not going to be able to pass the class. I started this policy because a few years ago I had students who would be in the class doing fine, and then they'd be gone for a month. And then they would come back and they'd wonder what the problem was. It's like, well, look, that's just not the way that it works. So as long as everybody keeps up with participating throughout the week, every week during the class, you'll be fine. Two other things I'll mention here that are important. The first one is that under no circumstances can you say, I'm sorry, I couldn't participate because I couldn't get to a computer or because I'm someplace where there's not Wi-Fi or something like that. You can't sign up for an online class and potentially use that as a reason not to participate. The other thing I like to point out is like how much participation should you, what should you do for participation? I think a good rule of thumb to think about is that if this class were meeting face-to-face, we would meet about 3 hours a week. So I think that you probably want to be online and engaged in the course website with discussions and everything else about 3 hours a week. And I'll talk about what that means in just a second. Some people sometimes think that seems like a lot, but again, an online class isn't necessarily less work or less attention or less engagement with each other. It's just a shifting of when you can do those things and where you can do those things from. Participations were 250 points, and this is what participation counts as. But before we get too far with that, remember to follow these instructions for setting up your 444 class website account, because in order to post on this page that you're looking at right now, you're going to need to have an account. So make sure you get that all set up. These are the rules for participation. I think the key thing here is that the discussions, even though the discussions are online, and even though that means that the discussions can happen across a couple of days, they have to start on Mondays and on Wednesdays in order for the discussion to grow. So this is what I'm getting at. You'll note on the calendars it always says beginning on Mondays and beginning on Wednesdays. What I mean by begin is start. Begin. So I expect everyone participating in a discussion about a topic to post a comment in the comment section on this site by Monday or by Wednesday, depending on which day it is. And if you begin on Monday, you need to finish by Wednesday. And if you begin on Wednesday, you need to finish by Friday. The reason why this beginning point is so important is because if everybody just sees it as a window, like you have to participate somewhere between Monday and Wednesday and Friday, what that means is that people wait until Wednesday, and then we don't really have a chance to have an actual discussion because everybody's posting stuff at the end. The second thing is that these comments on various readings and activities and things like that are supposed to be a discussion. And that means that I'm not expecting people or even wanting people to write really long posts that are sort of like, reviews or diatribes about whatever it is we're talking about. Short posts that raise questions, that point things out. And then the idea is that you comment on each other's comments, right? There's an exchange that happens between people on the site. That's where the discussion will hopefully grow and be present and useful and things like that. Okay. Stuff that you need to sign up for potentially or for sure, maybe Twitter, LinkedIn, WordPress, and Weebly, and maybe some more things. We'll talk about that as we go along. I'll just show you the word writing projects right here for the time being. There's basically 3 large projects during the course of the semester. 2 of them are larger than more long-term than the others, the semester social media and the usability text to hypertext project. We'll start with the Codecademy exercises, which really are at the beginning of the term, although there's a second one that you need to finish later on. Graduate students have an additional project, and we'll talk about that a little bit. The web portfolio is worth a total of 250 points, which is different from the assignments themselves. Think of it this way. The assignments themselves are things you'll be writing about, researching about, based on your experiences, based on things that you make with web pages, stuff like that. The portfolio, the writing for the web portfolio, is a WordPress site that you will create that will be the container for your projects. And the reason why I assigned this to be worth 250 points outside of the regular writing assignments is that I want to draw your attention to the fact that part of what we're trying to learn how to do in this class is how to use and manipulate WordPress, which is a very common content management system. And we'll talk more about it as the semester goes along, but that's essentially how most stuff on the web is published nowadays, through a system that produces dynamic web pages instead of static HTML and CSS, although that's important too. But I'm getting ahead of myself because we'll talk about that with the Codecademy projects. Basic thing, a couple things here about lateness and things like that. In order to pass the course, you need to finish all the assignments. A brief word here about privacy. One of the things that I do for this class is different from other classes that I teach, including other online classes, is I use a WordPress installation of a website that's out there free on the web. So for example, if you wanted to, write your aunt in California and say, hey, I'm taking this cool class called Writing for the World Wide Web, check it out, and you gave your aunt the address of 444.stevendkrause.com, she could see everything that you're seeing, okay? Because this exists publicly on the web, as opposed to Canvas. Because if we were just inside Canvas, Canvas is a walled garden of sorts, meaning that there's no way your aunt could really get access to that unless she was a student at EMU too. I do this on purpose because the thing is that one of the key things about writing for the web is understanding that it is indeed a public space. And we will be existing in this public space throughout the term as a matter of course, as a matter of practice. Having said that, you should be kind of aware that it's a public space, and you may want to think about that in terms of your privacy. So, for example, I will only list your first name and last initial as a link to your website, as a link to your writing portfolio site. And I will always refer, and you can refer to yourself with your first name and last initial. And if you have some sort of alias that you'd rather have me use, just let me know and we can make that work. I know that different people have different levels of issues of privacy and things like that. So it's something to think about. It's also something to think about because one of the things I'm going to ask you to do this semester is engage in several social media outlets. Again, that's something that you can do um, however you're comfortable with in terms of guarding your privacy and whatnot. But it's something to think about. And we'll do some readings this semester that I hope will make you think more about some of these issues about privacy and things like that. Let me briefly walk you through some other parts of the website here. If you go back to the home page, which is where I'm at right now, this is the schedule for the semester. This is probably going to change. It's going to change for all kinds of different reasons, not the least of which is that different things are going to come up during the course of the semester, which is why I several times use the phrase other TBA and emerging readings on social media or whatever else. But what I mean is that, for example, the first day of class is September 7th. So beginning on Wednesday, you should do these things, okay? You'll have until Friday to do that. Next week, beginning on Monday, you'll do these things. We'll talk more about the writing assignments, we'll sign up for Codecademy, and so forth, okay? It goes that way through the whole semester. One thing that's interesting, different about the nature of this class versus some other classes I teach is it really is very web-like in the sense that it's all out there right now, and you can start looking at different parts of the class in terms of all the major writing assignments, what the graduate students are supposed to do. I'm just clicking on this link here, and graduate students should read this, and we'll start talking about this next week. And in an ideal world, what would happen is that you would finish all the reading for this class before you even showed up. Obviously, you didn't do that. I'm not expecting you to have done that. But what that does for the class is it kind of creates a sort of interesting pattern of where we do a bunch of stuff at the beginning of the semester on the Codecademy exercises. You'll see those referred to here. And we also do a lot of reading at the beginning of the semester. But then a lot of the major writing projects are actually due, there's some parts of it due earlier, but there's a lot of stuff that's due at the end. Because basically we need to spend a lot of time at the beginning of the semester reading, discussing, and then making stuff based on those readings and discussions, and then you hand that stuff in at the end. Okay? Okay, so that's a very brief introduction. So now what I want you to do is, in the comments on this post, is I want you to introduce yourselves, and I want you to, in the comments, and I want you to ask whatever questions you have. Now remember, before you can do that, you have to log into the site, so make sure that you go through the registration process. It's super easy to do. Okay, welcome aboard.